Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back into oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forgive. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Ho, ho, ho. Hello, everyone. I hope you've got your Christmas trees set up and your lights and decorations for the festive season. And welcome to Movie Oubliette, the transcontinental film review podcast with me, Dan, considering going to a free outdoor screening of Gremlins before Christmas in Melbourne, Australia.
And me, Conrad, highlighting films I want to watch on TV over Christmas in my festive double edition of the Radio Times in Cambridge, UK.
Oh, in this podcast, we discuss fantastical films, sci-fi, horror, and fantasy, because we just like to invite strange, overweight, oddly dressed men into our houses to give us mystery boxes. Oh. How are you, Conrad?
I'm very well. I'm getting very excited about Christmas because I love it. How about you?
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm also gearing for the impending summer that will just annihilate everyone because it's just so damn hot. But yeah, excited nonetheless.
It's -2 here.
Wow.
Yeah. So whereas you're considering going to see Gremlins outdoors, I'm actually going to see it tonight in 4K indoors in the warm. I'm really excited they've re-released that. I love that movie.
Yeah, I love it too. So Conrad, any mailbag today?
Yes, we have some fantastic mailbag. On the Dead Zone, Ronin Drone said, every time someone says, I wish our president was more like Martin Sheen, I think of this movie and shudder.
Oh, because he played the president in West Wing, didn't he?
He did, yeah, for 7 seasons from 1999 to 2006, and I've never seen it. Have you?
No, I actually stay well clear of political drama.
No.
I haven't seen House of Cards either, so I don't know. It's just not my thing.
No, me neither. But presumably he was a much nicer president in that than he is in the Dead Zone.
Surely, yes.
Further back, we had a comment on the faculty talking about Piper Laurie slapping water in her face. Stephen Gavis said, when I heard this part of the podcast, I literally said out loud at my desk in work, oh my God, I always thought that was so funny. So we made someone feel as though they're not alone out there, which is always good.
Yes, that's amazing.
He also said, whenever I'm super thirsty and I'm chugging water at the water cooler, I say, I'm in the faculty, and nobody gets the reference. Oh, need better work colleagues, I think.
I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, me too. But my favourite mailbag of all was when I tweeted the clip from the faculty episode where I pointed out that Bebe Neuwirth kept dropping her keys when she really should have been using them as a weapon or as a means of escape from Robert Patrick. None other than Bebe Neuwirth herself replied, in all caps, because I had a fucking pencil through my hand and I was being chased by a madman. Tough to stay coordinated.
Yeah. Fair call.
Yeah, and then in normal case after that, also, blood is slippery. Oh, I love Bebe Neuwirth so much. And she makes some very fair points.
Yes. Conrad, so it is Christmas. Are we doing a Christmas movie this episode?
Well, let me just pop over to the oubliette and find out.
Yep.
Ooh, wow. It's like a sorority house in here. Very nicely decorated.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I better get that phone. Nobody's here.
Let me lick it.
Oh, weird.
Oh, that's really strange.
Oh, look. Here's a film on a rocking chair and someone's wrapped it for us. But they've wrapped it in cellophane so I can see what it is. Never mind. Coming back.
I know what you did, nasty Billy.
Right.
Okay, unwrap that present for us.
Yeah. Really weird wrapping. Okay, the film that we have is Black Christmas, a 1974 Canadian slasher film produced and directed by Bob Clark, written by A. Ron Moore. It stars Olivia Hussey as Jess, Keir Dullea as her piano-smashing boyfriend, Peter, Margot Kidder as Spicy Barb, John Saxon as obligatory policeman, Andrea Martin as Phyllis, and Lynn Griffin as Claire.
And what's this festive movie about?
Well, 'twas the night before Christmas, and all through the sorority house, not a creature was stirring, except for the deranged killer who's picking off the students one by one and dragging their lifeless bodies into his secret lair in the attic.
Oh, no.
Yes, in Black Christmas, a selection of strong female archetypes, the practical good-hearted Jess, sassy and brassy Barb, and eternal virgin Claire, get to enjoy some of the very best of festive traditions, getting jolly phone calls from strangers shrieking with excitement, listening to carolers while being stabbed with a glass unicorn, and relaxing in an old rocking chair with a plastic bag on their head. Always been one of my favourites.
It sounds like a holiday romp.
Will they realise something is amiss before the house mother's body begins to smell? Will they discover the identity of the killer before spring term starts? Will they escape when they find out that the calls are coming from inside the house? Find out in Bob Clark's seminal slasher, Black Christmas.
Oh, and we will be having someone join us too.
Thank goodness, yes, because two guys sneaking into a sorority house is not a good look.
Nope.
No, so we're joined by a very special and very wonderful actress.
After the break.
Welcome back. Joining us today is an actor whose career spans television on hit shows from Ryan's Hope to Chicago Hope, theatre and film, where she's memorably battled homicidal robots in a shopping mall and ensnared an unsuspecting private detective as a chillingly schizophrenic femme fatale. But she's best loved among genre fans for playing the spunky apocalypse survivor Sam Belmont in one of my all-time favourite Christmas movies, Night of the Comet. Yes, it's Kelli Maroney. Hooray!
Hey.
That was one of the loveliest introductions ever. Would you mind sending me a copy of that? I'll just hand it to others. That's great.
I would be happy to. It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is our Christmas episode, so season's greetings to you.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy Kwanzaa. Happy New Year.
There are so many now. Of course, we couldn't fail to pick a festive favourite for our film to discuss, and you chose the film that we will be discussing today. I was wondering if you could talk about why you chose it and why you were interested in resurrecting this film from obscurity.
It's the funniest thing. Right before I talked to you guys about doing the show, Black Christmas was running on cable, and I thought I have to record this. It was just a synchronicity thing. Black Christmas was the first horror movie I ever saw in the theater because the woman who was supposed to be watching me at the time, we skipped school and we took the bus downtown, and she dumped me in a theater where Black Christmas and then Emmanuel was playing. You know, it was just kind of a super funky theater. And she left me there. So I'm watching Black Christmas, and then I got to certain points, which we'll talk about later. I thought, I'm going to see what the other movie is. So I ran over there and I saw, people boxing and naked. And so I went, nope. And after I got through the initial shock of seeing it on the big screen, I'd only seen horror on television. I was enthralled. I was speechless, and then I got home and I had to lie to my mother. She was like, how was school today? Great. And to have Black Christmas be the first thing you saw on the big screen is amazing because it's so much more inventive than a lot of other things I could have seen first.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose Black Christmas.
It's a fascinating choice because although Halloween tends to be thought of as the launching point for the whole slasher craze that built over the 80s and died a little bit and then came back in the late 90s with Scream and so on, People tend to forget that Black Christmas came before Halloween, and it really started some of the trends that we see now.
I have a bit of trivia that you might find interesting, and that is that Carpenter worked with Bob Clark, who did Black Christmas, and he said, I love Black Christmas. Is there ever going to be a sequel? And he said, I don't think so. But if there were, I'd pick another holiday, like Halloween.
Oh.
And he gave him the idea, but then he very kindly says, he deserves full credit because I said I had an idea does not make me the creator of this. But get it? Black Christmas, Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes, that I thought that was so cool.
It is, yeah. So it definitely did inspire Halloween directly in that case.
Yes, it's the godfather, yes.
Wow.
I know, I love that bit of trivia.
Yeah. Well, it's good that he's, not bitter and going to court over it.
He was never that guy. He was never, Bob Clark is one of my favorite. I wish that he'd made a ton more movies, but I can notice the difference between A Christmas Story and Black Christmas, the colors that he used and the pacing that he had. There's just something about him as a person that comes through his movies that I really like.
Yeah.
A lot of times you know somebody's work, but it means you don't necessarily know anything about them as a person. I feel like we know him.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating that Bob Clark directed 2 Christmas movies. One of them is the proto-slasher thriller, and the other one is like this family favorite that used to sort of run on a loop on cable, as I understand it.
Yeah, the nostalgia factor. You'll shoot your eye out. It's so charming. But after you see Black Christmas, now I want to go back and review again Christmas Story because I'm sure that I'm going to catch some sly humor and weirdness in it that I didn't see before.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was very surprised to look up his other films, and he's done Porky's 1 and 2. He did Baby Geniuses 1 and 2. So Black Christmas is definitely a departure from his usual comedy.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
It's very strange. So the film itself is quite unusual in terms of its structure because the first shot is just an establishing shot of the sorority house, which will be our setting. It's Christmas time, there are red and green lights, there's a Silent Night choir singing on the soundtrack. The second shot, before we've even met any characters, is a point of view shot of the killer.
Let's get right to it.
Yeah. It's not like let's spend half an hour meeting the plucky girls that will be picked off one by one. You're right in this situation where this house is being invaded, which is really surprising.
Magnificent, because I do want to know the characters so I can care about them, but also to get right to it like that. I don't know if our attention would have been held. It's like, okay, we're at a sorority and it's Christmas and where is the killer? And the fact, too, that was it a Steadicam? Was that ever done before?
Yeah, I think John Carpenter was the first one to actually use the Panaglide to sort of steady it up. So this is fairly handheld, I think, in this movie. That's what it looks like to me. But yeah, I don't think anybody had really gone this far except possibly Peeping Tom in the 60s.
Oh, it's a really effective device.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I read that the cinematographer Albert J. Dunk created this harness, this shoulder harness, so that he could still walk while having this, I'm assuming, massive 70s camera strapped to his shoulder.
Yeah.
Because he had to climb a trellis into the house, he had to climb a ladder into the attic. It must have been a very unwielding thing to pull off.
It's amazing. I mean, considering how cumbersome, this is 1974, it's a low-budget movie, and yet the camera work in this movie is so fluid and so complicated. There are lots of single takes going from multiple different setups and different characters, and it's pretty amazing what he managed to pull off. It can't have been simple.
No, and the fact that it's following people here and there, it gives it a much more, rather than cutting, it gives you the feeling that you're in the room.
Exactly. I completely agree. You really did feel like you were in the room. And the way that the camera kind of wanders around the room as well, it does feel like every shot there's someone else there just kind of lurking around the corner.
Yeah. Then also that makes me feel like I never really know where that killer is too.
Yeah.
It's really smart. I mean, I can't get over it.
It is. It's way ahead of its time and incredibly tense.
Yeah, and I was wondering, would he feel like, I don't know what these people are talking about, I just went in there and shot it, which sometimes does happen, and then we brilliance to something that he was just like, I don't know, I just needed to do it that way.
Yeah.
I wonder what he would say. You probably would think, I don't know where they came up with that.
Even though it's an incredibly tense film, it isn't exploitative.
Mhm.
So much of the slasher genre, especially in the 80s, once you got into the Friday the 13th, was very much about nudity and exploiting women, and then violence against women as spectacle, which really gave it a bad taste in the mouth towards the end.
Why do you think that happened?
I don't know. It's a deeply troubling period, I think, in filmmaking, that you end up with this whole seam of movies that's all about exposing female flesh and then punishing it, particularly women who are sexually liberated. Maybe it's a response to the women's liberation movement in the 60s and 70s.
Could be.
In terms of women's liberation, this film is particularly fascinating in that its main character, played by Olivia Hussey, Jess, she has this drama that's going on.
Yes.
She is in a relationship with Keir Dullea, he of 2001, A Space Odyssey, who is another student, a slightly more mature student.
Yes, a 38-year-old apparently.
Yeah, there's a bit of a mismatch there. But unfortunately, their sort of relationship is cooling off, and she's discovered that she's pregnant, and she has to tell him that she doesn't intend to keep the baby. And this, in a film in 1974, filmed in 73, the same year that Roe v. Wade was decided in the Supreme Court. And there is this argument where the man, Keir Dullea, says to Olivia Hussey, "You can't make a decision like that. You haven't even asked me."
Right.
So there's this assumption that it's the man that makes a decision about what happens inside a woman's body, which, seen from today's perspective, entirely wrong.
You know, I don't think I understood it the first time I saw it, but revisiting it here in 2019, when the whole abortion story came up, I was shocked all over again. I thought, wait a second, isn't this in the early 70s? And I looked, 1974. Wow. It's just such a thing for her to say, and a thing for them to go off topic on about for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to bring him in as a suspect, so it's a brilliant way to do so.
It is, yeah, because he reacts so negatively to
Piano.
Yeah, so he's a pianist and he plays very violent piano pieces to begin with. And I think he's taking a final exam and he's playing this piece. I don't know if it's his own composition or if he's chosen it, but it seems to consist of just ramming his hands against the keys.
With a sledgehammer.
And then it obviously doesn't go well and he trashes the piano and it puts him right on the suspect list, I think.
Yeah, that scene was horrifying when he was smashing up a Steinway grand piano. It's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, and it does make me wonder because the score as well, Carl Zittrush's score, has a lot of prepared piano sounds and the scraping of piano strings, and it's very eerie. And it makes me wonder where even the use of the piano on the soundtrack is trying to hint that Keir Dullea, look at Keir Dullea, he's evil. But
yeah.
That's probably true.
But it's all a red herring, I think.
Yeah. I also found with a lot of slasher films, the characters are mostly unlikable and you're kind of rooting for the killer to kill off all these really annoying characters. But in this movie, it's completely the opposite. It's these really lovable characters. Apart from the only unlikable character is Keir Dullea's character. And so you immediately just assume, yes, he is the killer. But of course.
Wasn't she one of the first final girls, quote unquote?
Oh.
Yeah, I guess she is, isn't she?
You know, here I am, a complete adult going, don't go back in there. Forget it. Forget. Run out the door.
I was exactly the same.
Yeah, because it's that situation where the policeman phones up after they've traced where all of these obscene phone calls from the killer are coming from, and they're coming from inside the house, get out, but she doesn't go. And Olivia Hussey's been quite a strong defender of her character. She says, no, I'm not dumb to go back in. I'm worried about my friends.
Yeah. I didn't think it was stupid. I just thought, stop already. You need to. I know they're dead. And then I was worried that he was going to catch her by the hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could have been, I want to wear my hair down. And they just said, okay, fine.
Yeah, she does do all the wrong things. She goes back in the house and she even runs into the basement.
Good idea. Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. But she was blazing a trail as the final girl, and I think she does pretty well for herself. She arms herself and goes back in there to save her friends. So it's hard not to root for her, bless her.
And she does triumph over the supposed killer as well. She manages to clobber to death her boyfriend.
That's right.
She does, but she's wrong. She's got the wrong man.
Well, she scared the real killer to the point where he's hiding in the attic. He never came, to try to get her again. He's like up there chilling until she leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just rocking his rocking chair, singing to himself.
With the cat.
I have questions about this cat because I'm always the animal person.
Uh-huh.
What happened to the cat? Is the cat in the final frame and I didn't see it?
I didn't see it.
The cat is it's a beautiful cat, first of all. So you're going to notice it. And then it becomes a plot point where she's, Mrs. Mack is looking for it. And I thought, okay, you can't just drop the cat then, I hate when people do that in movies, and I understand why they have to do it. But I'm the irritating person that always goes, where's the dog? Where's the cat?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the one.
I'm always the person that's rooting for the pet to survive, because in so many of the Psycho on the Loose movies in the 90s particularly, it was always the bunny or the dog or the cat that bought it first, and I was always against that.
I hated that, but I noticed people in the present time make a point of saving the animal now, because we all grew up with that. Oh, don't kill the dog. Don't kill the bunny. So now, grown-ups making their own movie, they're going to make sure that dog survives. And it's so cute because we all know why they're doing it, because we can't take it. Dog's got to live, damn it.
Yeah, and I like to think that Claude is living happily. I think the last time you see Claude the cat in this movie, he is sitting on one of the killer's victims' laps, licking her dead face.
Yes. He's on the rocking chairs. And, they had to put tuna on her.
Oh.
And the cat has real claws, and she didn't have to be dead. So if the cat, stabbing her with the claws, she couldn't move. Yee.
Yeah.
If you didn't like cats, it would have been brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Let's assume Claude lived.
Yeah, definitely.
I always feel sorry for characters that get killed off early in the film as well, because the actors just have to play a dead, lifeless corpse for the remainder of the film.
Right. Yeah. But you know what? She packed a punch. She was such a strong character. I didn't see her dying because they really introduced her as she was a good character. I mean, they took time. She wasn't a red shirt.
No.
I was surprised because she seemed like a major character.
Yeah, I did find the film really misleading in who was the main character, because at the start you think, oh, Barb's the main character.
Right.
But no, she gets killed off halfway through, and then it's like, who are we following here? It was quite an ensemble cast.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, after you know it, you're following Olivia Hussey, but at first, you might not. It just looks like a crowd of women, and I love the character of Mrs. Mack. See, we won't take the time now to show Mrs. Mack and to develop her and show the bottles hidden everywhere and to know that she's got a sister. We don't have time for that anymore, and that's really marks it to me as a 70s movie. Is taking the time with setting up the character.
Yeah,
it's not that you're going to cry for Mrs. Mack or anything, but it's not just a body dying. It's one of our people.
Yeah. Conrad, you mentioned it as well. There's so much humor in this film. So every character is so likable and so much warmth with every character. And every character has their own very specific quirks. Mrs. Mack is retrieving all these hidden bottles from all over the house. And Barb with her very cynical, sarcastic humor and talking about turtles having sex for 24 hours or something.
Yeah, that's Margot Kidder. This is a very early role for her. I think it's before Superman. I think it's before the Amityville Horror. So this is really when she was breaking through, and she makes such an impact in this movie. She's very funny.
I think he just let her go and said, I'll tell you when it's too much. I believe that's true. I think I read that someplace because I don't think anybody sat down and wrote that. It's got so specifically weird for the turtles. I had the feeling, and maybe it's just because she's a really great actress, is that she was riffing.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, certainly Keir Dulay's memory of it was that he met her and found her to be essentially Barb, but he wonders in retrospect whether she was just staying in character the whole time.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's an amazing ensemble cast of characters, and it's really hard to see them being picked off because you do like all of them. And it's unusual, again, if this is the proto-slasher movie, the first person to get killed is the virgin. Barb actually refers to her as a, quote, professional virgin. I know a professional virgin when I see one. And she ends up with a plastic bag on her head. And Lynn Griffin, who plays Claire, she's amazing in terms of holding her breath for very, very long takes with a plastic bag over her head.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the grossest things ever.
Oh.
The image of her in the rocking chair.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very memorable. Apparently, Lynn Griffin still does the convention circuit. And if people look at her strangely and wonder who she is, she does bring a plastic bag with her and put it over her head.
No way.
She does. She's a really funny lady.
Oh, my God.
I was wondering because I lost track of her, but I thought, boy, she's a really strong actress to be the first one to kill off.
Yeah.
That's really cool that she does. That's really funny.
Yeah. She knows the image that people most remember her for, and so she owns it. It's great.
Now it's time for Random Trivia.
So Dan, what fascinating nugget of trivia have you dragged down from the attic and unwrapped from its plastic for us to hear today?
Oh, well, apparently the title of this film was actually changed to Silent Night, Evil Night because the American distributors feared the title Black Christmas might cause the film to be mistaken for a blaxploitation film, which I mean, admittedly, I actually did originally think this was a blaxploitation film when I first heard the title. But obviously not. And the change in title didn't actually increase audience members to go see it. So they just changed it back. And Black Christmas was much more of a winner in terms of getting people in seats. So Black Christmas it is.
Wow, I had no idea. Black Christmas is such a great title, though.
I know. I mean,
It's perfect.
Silent Night, Evil Night just sounds a little bit like a trashy slasher flick, whereas Black Christmas is a little bit more ambiguous.
Yeah, there's another movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night, isn't there?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and people were picketing that because I think it's Santa Claus killing people or something. Oh.
Not the sort of thing that kids should watch.
No, that's not festive. No. Well, the only nugget of trivia that I had that isn't very festive is that Keir Dullea on the commentary track, he mentioned that when this movie was due to have its first network premiere airing on television, which I can hardly believe given the content, but they must have changed a lot of it. But apparently it was around about the time that Ted Bundy broke into a college rather, and killed lots of young women in their sleep. So they pulled it at the last minute and it did not air. And that seems very sensible.
Yeah, wise choice there.
Yeah, and it was going to be Christmas as well. Yeah, it's not a good idea, is it? No. And that's our trivia.
Yeah. Talking about other characters, like even the killer, you never see his face ever in the film. You see an eye, and that's horrifying.
Yeah.
That scene is, very, very creepy scene. But you never see his face, you just kind of hear him breathing. And it's not the same Michael Myers breathing in Halloween. It's more of a kind of guttural, disgusting, gross kind of through your mouth breathing.
So you get a lot of that upside down because it collapses your larynx in a way that you just can't do when you're standing straight up.
Wow, really?
That's cool.
Wow.
I'd love to see the behind the scenes of that.
At least as good as the movie, right? I'm going to hang upside down for this take. Is that okay? Yeah, sure, whatever.
But those phone calls are pretty terrifying, it has to be said.
Yeah. They're more than one voice, right? I mean, I don't know exactly who, but they're more.
Yeah, I think there's a female voice in there and there's a male voice, and it sounds sort of like the tapes of Linda Blair speaking in tongues in The Exorcist. It's all sort of mixed together and shrieking and screaming, and yeah, it's pretty disturbing stuff.
It's like a phenomenon. It doesn't sound like something that would happen in real life. It sounds like there's more than one person there.
Yeah.
It's sort of some sort of otherworldly thing.
I still find it really convincing, though. Even though I know it's 3 different voices or whatever, it's still so disturbing enough to be... I believe it. I believe this person has all these multiple kind of personality voices that he's doing. And also, I think it's the first use in a more mainstream film of the forbidden C word.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's running around a lot.
Yes, which was actually censored in this country, in the UK.
Oh, right.
Really, because you guys say it way more than we do.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But obviously not in 1974.
Right.
I don't know why. Yeah. I think it's the first instance of the calls are coming from inside the house, that whole babysitter and the man upstairs urban legend.
Ah.
Because, of course, When a Stranger Calls was in 1979. And there are other ways in which I think A Black Christmas was very influential. I mean, obviously, it's thought of as the wellspring from which all of the slasher horrors sprung from. But there are other things in there, too, that I noticed. Like, you have a character that starts searching for a cat and falls victim to the boogeyman of the film and then dragged up into a hatch in the ceiling. And I thought, hang on,
Right.
this is Alien.
Oh, right.
Right.
And then you've got John Saxon as the town's police chief, and the mother of the house is a lush who keeps hiding booze around the house, and that's A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
So
Right.
there are echoes of this movie everywhere.
I especially found it so similar to the Scream movies. Even the phone calls and the phone calls coming from the house. The only difference with the Scream movies is the calls come before the murders happen, whereas in this movie, the calls come after the murders happen.
Everybody grew up loving this movie, and either consciously or unconsciously, it just informed their own work like to the max.
I think it's been hugely influential, even though if you ask people, have you seen Black Christmas? Most of the people I speak to, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's different, but for many years I'd say, oh, Black Christmas, and they go, what? What's that? And some horror movie, I guess you don't know what it is. Okay.
Yeah,
So true.
it's really strange.
Because I'd only seen this film recently and seeing Halloween many times, I just think, wow, Halloween's just ripping off Black Christmas to a T. I mean, I know Bob Clark gave his blessings to it, but it just seems like this is just a more polished Black Christmas.
Different holiday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what's also really interesting about this film is it doesn't have any of those really jump scare moments
Right.
that really irritate me, like the quiet bang sort of moments. In this film, it doesn't do that. Often there's no sound or like no big musical cue or anything. It's just oh my God, that's something creepy. And the visuals speak for themselves without having this accompanying loud, obnoxious sound.
That's an interesting point. People do go for jump scares, but this is like a quiet dread, like, please don't walk towards that closet. Please don't. And I think that's, what? I mean, I know people are probably lovers of jump scares, but I think that there's a group of people that really don't dig it and would prefer the slow and steady dread. A jump scare's coming and it's more like you're on edge. It's like, I know they're going to do it. I know that, okay.
Exactly.
But a dread is also scary in a different way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I kind of see this movie similar to The Shining. Just this underlying menace just always happening behind the scenes. And then you just kind of feel a little bit unnerved throughout the whole film. And then by the end of watching this film, I just felt really just icky and just like I needed to take a shower or something. Because especially that ending, that very ambiguous ending where Jess is in bed and she's like left alone, and then the camera kind of pans down the hallway and up into the attic and you hear Billy just kind of muttering to himself, and then the phone rings and you're like, what does that mean? And then credits roll and it's just it ruined me.
Yeah, it leaves the whole thing open-ended. You don't know who the killer is, what his motives are. whether he's going to get caught, whether he's going to stop, nothing. It's even more open-ended than Halloween, which sort of steals a page from this again because Michael Myers escapes at the end of that and has this sort of almost magical quality to him that he can be shot 6 times, fall over a balcony and just walk away.
Yes, it's a different kind of magic though than Billy has, where he's got all these different voices.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this killer is like, his voice is frightening, but you never hear Michael talk.
No,
That's true.
he's just referred to as a shape and he's just this unstoppable force, whereas Billy really is a character, and Bob Clark did say that they did work out a backstory for what he's talking about.
Ah, right.
I mean, you can hear it. You can hear it. Something about his sister, you know, will get in trouble, don't tell him, and something hideous, you know, went down in his family when he was a kid. You just know it.
Yeah.
That he's carrying around with him reenacting. Because he calls Margot Kidder, refer to her as Agnes when he walks in.
Yeah, I think he does. That's my mum's name, by the way.
Sorry. These inexplicable things, like what was the glass menagerie sitting there next to Barb? I mean, we never knew that she collected that stuff before. I'm thinking, oh, it's like the glass menagerie.
Yeah.
Stab, stab, stab.
Yeah, and her death scene is quite different from the others. It's almost like a Giallo movie, like an Argento movie. It's quite stylistic and it's intercutting between the violence, which you don't see explicitly, and a group of Christmas carolers outside who are singing so loudly that Jess can't hear the murder that's happening upstairs.
Yeah.
But there's this contrast between the girl with the crystal unicorn and this lovely Christmas choir. I mean, this is another thing I was going to ask you, Kelly. What do you think it is about Christmas that makes us want to make or watch?
Want to trash it?
Oh, yeah, horror movies.
Want to trash it?
Yeah.
Or reverse. I think everybody's like, we have a little bit more permission to be honest about things. And I think everybody's had that tension about, there's such a buildup. There's such a thing about Christmas. It's so much pressure. There's so much family stuff going on. I just think it's, you know, horror lives to build tension and then release it all at once. And I just think that we're drawn to that. It's like something that's always kind of scared us as people. Where can we punch a hole in that?
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's Christmas
Right.
is perfect because everyone can kind of go, yeah, you know, that's kind of how I really feel about it too. I mean, like, look, she's listening to those carolers and they spent a lot of time, you know, making that awesome carolers. And they weren't just standing there, cut to the carolers. And then the look on her face when Barb is dying and they cut to her face, creepiest facial expression ever.
Yeah.
Barb is dead. She's got that creepy smile on her face.
Yeah.
And as the life seeps out of Barb's body, Jess applauds.
Yeah.
It's really twisted.
So Christmas is there's such a feeling of the childhood thing. It's such a close to the bone holiday type thing. I think it's really easy to get in there and access emotions.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is that there has been a tradition for Christmas Gothic ever since Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, that there's just this tradition of ghost stories at Christmas, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it is because it's such a lovely special time that it just, I don't know, maybe the adults want something for them. Christmas is for kids, and then this is the Christmas for adults.
Right, because they just spent 2 months stressing out about it on their last nerve, and they want to see people die, okay? We have Krampus, too, though. We have Krampus.
Yeah, introducing darker European folklore about Christmas. Yeah, and then you have things like Gremlins, which are just sort of wickedly funny. It's just one of those things that Christmas seems to attract this kind of alternative programming.
You see such sweetness, you know, in the music and the lights and everything, and then we destroy it. And it just seems exceptionally wrong on our part to do it.
But I do love it.
Coming to you live from the Movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
A few too many brandies. I'm sure you're all lurking around Christmas trees, breathing heavily with anticipation for the Mobley Awards, where we present our favourite decoratively gift-wrapped parts of the film in a number of tryptophan-inducing categories. Is that a good thing? Yes.
Best quote. Well, I don't think it's going to be any surprise that my favourite quote comes from the acerbic Barb, played wonderfully by the sadly missed Margot Kidder.
Oh, yes.
Because she has so many fantastic lines in this movie. And this one comes when the sorority girls are gathered around the phone listening to one of the obscene phone calls, which is very rude, laced with C words, but also characterised by having lots of different voices. And Claire says, "Could that be one person?" And Barb replies, "No, Claire, that's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir doing their annual obscene phone call."
Oh, yes. That quote is magical because it's such a disturbing scene. Hearing those voices and all those curse words, and then Barb just breaks the tension with a quip like that. It's marvelous.
She's amazing. I love her in this movie. What was your favourite quote?
Exactly the same quote.
Was it?
Yes.
Most 70s moment.
I would like to say, film technical wise, a lot of crash zooms in this film.
Yeah.
Where items or shocking scenes are punctuated by a crash zoom just rushing forwards or rushing backwards. It's such a 70s technique. Like, I can think of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Lots of that happened in that movie as well. But it's not something that you really see anymore, apart from maybe a Quentin Tarantino movie.
No, it's not. And it's one of those things that I think is really dated, and I hate the fact that Kubrick uses it in The Shining a couple of times.
Yeah, sure.
I wish he didn't. Yeah, it really dates the movie. That's a good pick.
How about you, Conrad? 70s.
For me, I think it's a technology thing again, and it's the moment where the police are tracing the call to find out that it's coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
And it's literally a guy in a hard hat in a machine room with tons of clacking, crunching machinery, literally with his finger tracing where the call is going in the system. And it's just so noisy and amazing.
Yeah.
Clunky.
I was completely dumbfounded that is how they actually trace calls back in the 70s. Physically walking down a room trying to find where the signal was coming from. Wow.
Definitely not the way it happens now.
No.
At least I hope not.
Best hair or costume?
I really loved how Jess was dressed in this movie. Like, lots of yellow. I don't know whether you noticed, but she was often wearing yellow in scenes. But I think it's the first scene, she's wearing a knit woolen sweater with these two giant hands knitted on the front of it. Who would wear that?
Especially a girl, because it looks like they're grabbing at her breasts. It looks like that Janet Jackson album cover.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing I picked. It's just so outrageous.
It's terrible. I don't know. It's not flattering.
Favorite scene?
My favourite scene, although she's probably my favourite character, is the death of Barb, because it's a very stylishly shot and lit and edited scene. It's very much like an Argento movie, like a giallo killing, with this crystal unicorn she's being stabbed to death with. And when she wakes up, you have this shot of him poised over her bed with it raised over his head, and just this one shaft of light illuminating one of his eyes. And it's a really disturbing shot. And of course, it's intercut with Jess watching Christmas carolers sing a pretty Christmas tune outside. So the whole thing is really disturbing. That is definitely my favourite. I think it sums up the irony of the Christmas horror movie perfectly for our episode.
I always get so much more unsettled with a horrific visual accompanied by happy festive music.
Yes.
I'm just so much more disturbed.
Yeah, it's perfect. How about you?
Well, I would say that scene is definitely up there, but that last scene, I don't know, it just haunts me. That very, very last scene just before the credits. And I mentioned it before. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
How slow the camera moves down the hallway up into the attic, and then Billy just muttering, "It's me, Billy." And then when it pans out in the exterior shot, and you hear the phone ring, and then it's credits, and then the phone throughout the entire credits. God, it just makes that sound so much more ominous and so much more sort of fear-inducing.
Yeah. It's a really strong and disturbing ending to the movie.
It's awful.
Especially pulling away from the sorority house, and you can still see Claire in the attic window, dead, with the plastic bag over her head.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to one and all.
Yeah.
Most cliched horror moment.
I have to say it. It's a horror, the don't go in there moment, where Jess she knows that the killer's in the house. She's been told to just leave the house, but no, she doesn't. She picks up a fire poker and goes upstairs. So yeah, that's
She does.
the don't go in there moment in the horror film. Oh. I was shouting it at the screen.
I think that's the point. Yeah, I've written exactly the same thing. Terrified heroine runs up the stairs or in the basement, not out of the house. Run out of the house. But yes, as we said, Olivia Hussey has defended that moment. She's being brave. She's defending her friends. So, okay, but still.
I know.
Favorite special effect.
I didn't actually think there were any special effects in this movie, so I just went for an amazing personal effect, which is Lynn Griffin, the actress who plays Claire. Just her breath control and her ability to keep her eyes still when she's playing dead in a plastic bag, I thought was amazing.
I would agree with that as well, because it's hard playing a corpse. As much of it's a bit of a chore, it's hard being that still. And it's one of my pet peeves of sort of bad acting. When an actor can't play a corpse well, you see a blink, or you see their stomach moving up and down because they're breathing. So yeah, she does it well.
She does an amazing job, even with a cat licking her and clawing her, or somebody rocking her violently back and forth while singing some bizarre song at her, and she keeps her eyes fixed and dilated and her breath isn't there. Oh, it's amazing. Well done, Lynn Griffin.
Yeah, well done.
Did you find an effect that you liked in this movie?
No, that was one I wrote as well.
That's amazing. Okay.
Best sound effect.
Well, I was going to say the breathing because it was just so unnerving, but I just like the use of no sound in this film, like no big noises, no jump scares. It was so refreshing to watch a film that was just unnerving because of the circumstances, and not unnerving because someone shut the door too loudly or a cat jumps out of a curtain, or it was refreshing.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
And also the last scene that I really loved, that really haunting scene, there's only the sound of wind and a ticking clock. And because they only had those two sounds and no music and nothing else, it made it way, way more uncomfortable to watch. And I really commend how well they restrained sound in this movie.
Yeah, they did. Because it's a universal truth that everybody loves to fill an awkward silence. And if you're placed in an awkward silence in a movie, it's really disturbing. Especially in a theatre. If you watch a movie in a theatre and the silence in there, like when I went to watch A Quiet Place, the silence in the theatre during those sequences, nobody dared rustle anything.
Yeah. And how about you, Conrad? Any favourite sound effects?
Well, I was thinking of the cat, actually, because as you say, it's amazing for a horror movie with a cat that it doesn't get thrown into a shot screeching at some point to make you jump. But when they do use it, it's quite effective. I don't think it is the cat. I think it's the killer that's making those strange echoey noises from the attic that lure Mrs. Mack to her death. I think it's him. But it's a very odd sound and it's heavily processed. So I really liked that. I thought it was great. Very disturbing.
Yeah, right.
Most funniest scene.
Although Margot Kidder is by far the funniest thing in this movie, my favourite scene is actually one that focuses on Mrs. Mack, the house mother, who's a bit of a lush.
Oh, yes.
I love the scene where she's showing around Claire's father. And this is when Claire's gone missing and the father's wondering where she is. And Mrs. Mack obviously has let him into her room. And the first thing that you see is one of Claire's posters, which is of this stern Quaker-style old lady with needlework on her lap. But as the camera pans across the scene from one frame of this to the next, the last one is this woman leaning forward and giving you the finger. And there's also a poster of a naked couple lying on the ground together, which Mrs. Mack is sort of trying to lean on and put her hand over the naughty parts.
Yes.
So that this father can't see it. And it's so awkward. And later on, after they separate, because she goes to get her coat and bag because they've agreed to go somewhere and he's going to drive her, she hears the cat and she's shouting, "Where are you, Claude? Where are you?" And she says, "Claude, you little prick," just as this guy comes up the stairs. It's perfectly timed.
Yes.
She just looks at him and says, "It's very kind of you to give me a lift, Mr. Harrison." As though nothing's happened. It's hilarious. She is so funny in this movie. Marion Waldman as Mrs. Mack.
I just loved how she just kept finding bottles of alcohol everywhere. In the toilet, in a book. Crazy.
Yeah, that thing where she's cut like the outline of a whiskey bottle in every page of a book to hide something in it.
Yeah.
I was really inspired the first time I saw that, and I tried to do that with a book of mine. It's not with booze, obviously, but just to create a secret hidey hole. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of pages to cut.
How about you? What was your funniest scene?
Another line from Barb. So she's talking to her mother, and it's like Christmas Eve or something. And she's just found out her mother's seeing someone, and Barb can't go to see her because her mum wants to have some romantic date. She replies, "You're a real gold-plated whore, you know." It's not the sort of thing I would say to my mother, but it's hilarious.
At Christmas. Yeah. Oh, Barb is amazing. There's that wonderful scene in the police station where she manages to convince the dim-witted sergeant behind the desk that the name of her telephone exchange is Fellatio.
Oh my God, yes.
Barb is amazing in this movie.
Yes.
And that's our mood, please.
It's the season of sharing. So, Gary, what did you think of this movie?
Well, I admired the way it intercut between Argento-style murder scenes and bourgeois festive tropes, and the transformation of the psycho murder into a quasi-supernatural force was executed more effectively than Carpenter's Halloween.
Wow! Gary, that is amazing insight into Black Christmas.
Black what? I was talking about Grease 2.
Gary, of course. Worth a shot. Merry Christmas anyway.
Welcome back, everyone. So now's the time for the final verdict. Should the original version of Black Christmas be set free to invade sorority houses and make a new batch of girls his victims, or should it be stuffed up in the attic with a plastic bag over its head to be forgotten forever? Kelly, you are a special guest today and you picked this movie. Would you like to plead its case?
Certainly. I feel like this is the easiest attorney job I've ever had in my life, pleading this case, because I think that account for so many other horror movies. I think that so many people were inspired and riffed off of it, either intentionally or unintentionally. I just think the character development is amazing. I think that the way that they develop the killer is we learn things from them that have never been done before, that we have never seen before. And we learned a lot from it. I think it's a classic, and I think absolutely it deserves a crowning place in our horror lives. I just do.
Yes, I think that's very well argued.
Let me go first because you know that there's no way we're going to throw this one back.
Dan, how about you?
100% agree. I think this movie should be watched by every single horror fan in the world. Anyone wanting to get into horror, filmmaking as well, should watch this. It's incredible filmmaking, great use of camera work, economical use of camera work as well. A lot of one shots and focus pulling, wandering around the room. And yeah, you just felt really deeply unsettled throughout the entire film. And I think that's a good thing rather than every 10 minutes getting a fright because some big loud noise has happened. Agreed on the characters as well. You never see horror movies these days with so much character development and character interaction. So I was really saddened when all of these lovable characters were getting killed off. And yeah, that ending just ruined me, and I will never never be the same again because yeah, that's having that phone call ring out throughout the entire credits as well. Yeah, deeply disturbed, but in all the best ways.
Yes, well, I don't think I'm going to be the party pooper, especially as it's Christmas. I think this is an amazing film. People do need to seek it out and watch it if they haven't seen it. If you think Halloween is the source of all great slasher movies, you're wrong. Take a few steps backwards in time and watch Bob Clark's classic, because you get to see everything that John Carpenter picked up on. And it's a really intense, disturbing, psychological thriller.
Right.
And even though when you say to people it's a movie about a stalker that's preying upon girls in a sorority house, you think, oh no, this is going to be terrible, exploitative trash. It really isn't that. In fact, it's probably one of the first realistic depictions of a group of adult women at college that had ever been committed to film. And they're all likable. And they're all real people. And this is a very disturbing situation they're in. I think just in terms of how it's been made and how effective it is, it deserves to be seen. So I'm adding my vote. I think it should be set free to enjoy rampaging through Christmases to come.
So I guess we are setting it free.
We are setting it free. Goodbye, Black Christmas.
Oh, you go wild. No attic for you. It's crowded in that attic anyways.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of people stuffed up there.
And also, I would like to note that no one should ever watch the 2006 remake. It does not do it justice.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen that. I haven't been able to. I didn't want to. I just. People said don't watch it. And I went, okay, I won't.
No, not recommended.
But it's fascinating that there is a new remake of it coming out pretty soon from Blumhouse. And for the first time, Blumhouse have hired a female director to take the reins for this one, Sophia Takal, who has done some amazing films like Always Shine. And she's already done a seasonal themed episode of Hulu's holiday themed series Into the Dark. But in that case, she was doing New Year. And that was the best reviewed episode of that particular series. So keeping my fingers crossed, this could be really interesting.
Yes, I got a chance to talk to April Wolf, who's the co-writer. And I just think those ladies are really going to come up with something amazing for 2019. I think we're going to be thrilled with what we see.
Wow. Well, another thing standing in its favour, Dan, is it's being filmed in New Zealand.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Bonus points from me.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, Kelli, it's been amazing having you on the show, and I'm sure our listeners have really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on Black Christmas. Where can they follow you, and what can they expect to see you next?
Well, thank you. I am on Instagram with my name, Kelli Maroney. It's KelliMaroney. And if you misspell it, don't feel bad, because when I was on True Blood, they misspelled my name in the credits. And, I've been around way too long for them to be misspelling my name. But that happens a lot. Anyway, so the Instagram, Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot, too. Again, my name. I'm trying to make it super easy for y'all. KELLIMARONY. I've got a couple of groups on Facebook, on my official Facebook page, and actress Kelli Maroney. And I'm setting up a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel disappeared on me, and so now I have to set up a new one, but it's in its infancy stages, but it will be there. I have a movie coming out called Exorcism at 60,000 Feet, with a cast of icons: Adrienne Barbeau, Lance Henriksen, Bill Moseley, Bai Ling, Kevin O'Connor. I always think of it as if you saw the bunch of us all get on the same airplane and we weren't going to a convention, get off the airplane. Not want to be, because something horrible is going to happen. I mean, if one of us got on the airplane, but if all of us, bail really fast as you can. I've got a couple of festival films. I just had one at Dances with Wolves called Blowing Up Right Now. And I have a spa day, which I get to play an alcoholic MILF. So, yeah, that's my inner Margot Kidder, decades later. And not exactly, I'm just teasing. And something called A Well-Respected Man. So there's stuff to be in the future. Yes.
Wow. So much to enjoy.
I'd love to be doing Sophie's Choice, or something Masterpiece Theater. However, these are also every bit as fun, and they do tend to stick with people. And for that, I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate. I'm very grateful.
Well, I'm sure everybody will love to check those out. That sounds amazing.
I will. And if you want to follow us through the holiday season, you can look us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as Movie Oubliette, all one word, or you can email us at movie.oubliette@gmail.com.
And if you fancy supporting the show and giving us a special gift, we'll always remember you can become a patron on Patreon. For as little as $1, you can suggest movies for us to do in future episode, and for $5, you get access to special, previously unreleased clips, including extended conversations with our special guests.
Yes, so why don't you use that $5 you got from your grandma and become a patron?
Yes, and it'll give you a warm, glowing, magical feeling inside.
Along with all that eggnog.
God, eggnog.
Okay, Conrad, so what will we be doing in the new year?
Well, Star Wars fever has hit the world because, of course, the last episode in the Skywalker trilogy has just been released over Christmas. The Mandalorian is on Disney+. So we thought we'd talk about one of the lesser-known Star Wars movies. It is Ewoks, The Battle for Endor.
Oh, good, is it?
Well, I've never seen it, so it should be interesting.
And we will be joined by a guest.
Yes.
A very avid Star Wars fan.
Yeah, it should be exciting.
Well, thanks, Kelly, for joining us for this Christmas episode.
Thank you. I love being on Movie Oubliette. I love saying it. It was my pleasure entirely, and I just had a wonderful time with you guys, and I just feel like, what other movies should we talk about now? So it was very much fun, and I thank you. Thank you. Happy holidays and a happy new year to you, too.
Thank you so much, you too.
And thank you, listeners, for sticking with us for another year, and look forward to the new year.
Yes, Merry Christmas, season's greetings, and Happy New Year to everyone. Hope to see you next year.
Bye. I love you guys. You're awesome.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Review the films others tend to forgive. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
Did you know there's a certain species of turtle that can screw for 3 days without stopping? You don't believe me, do you? Well, I mean, how could I make something like that up?